Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first BCP Cabinet meeting in person since this administration, and welcome everybody. The first agenda item is apologies. Sarah, I believe we don't have any. We have apologies from Mike White, who is attending virtually.
No other apologies.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest. I haven't received any declarations to date. Do any of Cabinet like to declare any interest?
Chairman.
Nigel.
Thank you.
Councillor Brooks.
I wish to declare an interest in item agenda 7, which is the potential transfer of play sites and Highcliffe recreation ground, as I'm also a parish councillor and also the ward councillor for Highcliffe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations of interest?
Yes, please, Chairman, it's Councillor Allen.
But Hazel, Alan, please go ahead.
I'd just like to declare an interest in the item around the Homeless Health Hub, just to declare that I am employed by the NHS and work with patients that are homeless in my role, and so there's a slight conflict of interest there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hazel. That's great. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands, so we'll move to Sarah Colwick to do the housekeeping document.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting of the Cabinet is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. Please could everyone present follow these ground rules. Only speak when invited to by the Chairman. If accessing via Teams, always turn on your video function when invited to speak and state your name. Please use your microphones when speaking, and please mute or turn off your microphone when you are not talking. If accessing via Teams and you would like to speak on an item, please do so by utilising the raise your hand feature in the bar at the top of the Teams window. If a vote is required on any issue, then we can either call out each member's name in turn or if it's not through a unanimous vote. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the ground floor of the multi-storey car park. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Happy to second, Chair.
Great. Okay, so are there any comments on the minutes from the previous meeting? Nope, not so. We'll take that forward as a move to vote. And anybody like to offer any dissent to propose that? No, thank you. So we'll take that forward as unanimous. Thank you. That moves us on to agenda item 4, which is public issues. There have been no statements, questions or permissions submitted on this occasion. So we'll move to agenda item 5, which is recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Board. So it calls me now to invite Councillor Stephen Bartlett. Steve, as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, can you talk us through the recommendations, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I think probably best left to you deal with them under each individual agenda item. The reason I put my hand up was because the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting didn't show that I was in attendance, and I actually was. So I just wanted to correct that. But the ONS recommendations, I think, as I said, we could deal with them as and when we come to the agendas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. We will get that amended. Thank you. Okay, so that moves us on to agenda item 6, which is the proposed regeneration vehicle options appraisal. So I've moved to Councillor Broadhead to move this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think this is a really exciting item coming at a really exciting time for our conurbation. We're at the stage where we've just released our big plan, which puts a step change in the level of ambition we have, not just for our place, but in particular for our regeneration aspirations. And we took a paper through on the 10th of March, where we were very honest with the fact that A, we wanted to do this, but B, we did not really have the capacity, the skills, the experience in-house to match the level of ambition that we have for our regeneration aspirations. And therefore we would have to think different Step one of that was to look at the budget, and we put a substantial, almost £2 million increase into the regeneration budget, which is, I think, about a 400 or 500% increase. That's stage one, but of course that only makes a difference, and you can only do that properly if you're then following it through and making sure that you have the both the structures, the skills, and the experience in place to unlock all of the aspirations that we have in that area. And that's what this paper is about. It's taking that last paper, that recognition that we needed to do something different, and putting forward a proposal for how we're going to do that in the future. In that paper, we looked at 5 different proposed models that we could look at to try and take this this journey forwards: a urban regeneration company, an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, joint venture, strategic partnership, or the expansion of one of our existing wholly owned council companies. And those were the different options, but of course they're not mutually exclusive as well. Actually, a lot of the sites that you're looking at may well incorporate one or the others as part of that process, but really we needed to nail exactly how we were going to finalise this going forward. So as part of that paper, we got some external consultants in that have done this work and done it in a really positive fashion for other local authorities in the past, and the results of their report was very positive. I mean, as it says in the report, it realises that the scale of the opportunity we have in this area, 3,500 homes, around £2 billion of gross development value just from our initial list of sites, is there and needs to be unlocked, but we don't have the appropriate capacity, capability or in-depth experience to unlock that, and therefore we do have to think differently. And the outcome of that work that we've been doing behind the scenes has put forward a proposed preferred option, which is taken through in the options appraisal under item 11, where it goes through the 5 different models that I talked about earlier, puts the assessment against which one of those is the most likely to be able to take this journey forward. And the clear winner on that is for us to set up our own urban regeneration company. And as you can see in that table, it scores very highly in being able to unlock all of the things that we wanted to do. So the paper takes through what that company will look like. It would be a wholly owned council company, so that way we have complete control over its strategic objectives. We're not looking to partner with any particular person, organisation or company for the actual urban regeneration company. But of course, when we look at individual sites into the future, we've got the option of direct delivery through the urban regeneration company if we want. But we've also maintained the flexibility within that structure to have new joint ventures or strategic partnerships going forward underneath that if we did want to. And it's pretty clear from the work that we've been doing that this is the best way to get the regeneration, development, project management skills that we very clearly need within the local authority, and get the best talent, is to set up this company and do it. As I mentioned before, it's wholly owned by the council, so we will be in strategic control. The annual business plan will come forward with the council. At this stage, we're not looking at transferring any of the council assets into that model. It's very much the brains, the strategic lead at the moment. Of course, things may change in the future as we look at different models, but actually at the moment, this is a place to land that talent and really take us to the next level. So the paper in front of us takes us through that option and supports the establishment of this URC, delegating authority executive, and also in consultation with the leader and myself to set this up, and I think we're probably a matter of weeks away from being able to do that. We've already got a number of people that we're working with on an interim basis. We've had some real interest from some world-class talent that want to come and lead us and lead this company, which I think shows how exciting this journey will be. There's one further addition that I'd like to make to the paper, Chair, and it was actually something in recognition of the work that Overview and Scrutiny did on this, where there was an almost a unanimous agreement that this was the right way to go. However, this has got to have some legs. It's got to have some longevity as well. We budgeted for that longevity, but it wasn't built into the actual the structure itself. So what we're actually doing is proposing a service level agreement which we'll enter into, which will be for an initial period of 3 years with an opportunity for review after 2 years. That will give us a stable period for the vehicle, but also give the council flexibility in the event that anything changes nationally, local social circumstances change. Therefore, I would like to add a further clause, which is that BCP Council will enter into a service level agreement with the new company for an initial period of 3 years, and which will provide for the opportunity for review after 2 years in order to afford the company the opportunity of a period of stability within which to holistically plan and put forward proposals for regeneration projects to the council. The precise wording of this agreement is delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader and Deputy Leader as provided for in the recommendation. That's my brief summary. Thank you to the work of all the officers and the consultants I've been working with. Thank you to the work of members, particularly over in scrutiny, for looking into it in great detail. I'm really excited about this journey. This will be a step change for our regeneration, and finally the ability for us to stop drawing plans on a paper and start delivering for the people of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, and I'm delighted to formally second the paper. I think it's completely agree. It's hugely exciting for the area. We've come in as an administration and tried to underline our ambition, for the place, how this should be a world-class city region, and this is a massive part of the delivery in being able to do that. I think regeneration often is around 3 key areas. You need to have the land, you need to have the finance, you need to have the skills, and we have land. Things like the Futures Fund, we're bringing forward the finance, and we have massive opportunity as one of the largest councils in the country now to deliver on that finance, and this very, very material investment in skills should complete that triangle. So I think we're in a really, really good shape with it, and I'm very happy to second it. And I open it up to Cabinet for Councillor Bartlett. Before I open it up, there was no sort of official recommendation from overview and scrutiny, but is there anything, it was well debated, is there anything you would like to add before I open up to the wider debate?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, as you say, the overview and scrutiny board were broadly supportive of the paper, and thank you for the addition of the service level agreement, which I think will help greatly in terms of accountability, which was one of the issues that was debated at length at the overview and scrutiny board. However, after assurances from yourself and Deputy Leader and also Chief Executive, it was recognised the paper was more about setting up the company initially, and that as a wholly owned company, it would be subjected to normal council controls and future overview and scrutiny, and I think the service level agreement will help to that end. So yes, also a degree of excitement about what's happening, and as you say, no recommendations formally from the board, but overall very supportive of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Thank you for your committee. To Councillor, I've got Councillor Cabinet Councillor Dunlop to go first. Beverly.
Thank you, Leader. I'm really excited by this. If we're going to make a significant difference to people's lives, it can't be done by people who already have a demanding day job. It's something we really, really must put a focus on. Urban living is changing, environmental needs are changing, transport habits are changing. And if we're going to get ahead of that curve, we really need to start focusing on it now and build our towns and our public realm as places people want to live and work. And this can't be done without a direct focus and a strong focus. And as the lead for Bournemouth Regeneration, this is really quite thrilling for me. So I fully support this paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dunlop. And I move to Councillor Steve Barron. Steve.
Thank you, Leader. Looking at the options, doing nothing really isn't an option. So the formation of URC would accelerate delivery. I'd welcome Cabinet supporting the recommendation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that. That's great. Okay, Councillor Anger, Mohan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Very, very much support this paper. I think probably it's nice to probably pay tribute to the number of projects that have been done hitherto in the Legacy 3 councils, which have been run by officers, and now and more recently in the BCP. But I think genuinely this initiative, this is about actually sort of reaching out and saying, how can we actually change our thinking about some of the very biggest projects and the very biggest ambitions that we've got? And I'd be surprised if anybody would disagree that sometimes to do those things within the council and within all the rules in the broadest sense that we have to do them within the council either puts a constraint on the time or the ambition that we can undertake, and therefore something like this, truly the time has come for an idea like this, and it's absolutely welcome. And I also like the amendment which my colleague has proposed there, because I think we need that proper balance between flexibility so that we stay in control of it, but equally giving the assurance to both sides that we giving some sort of sustainability to it, so that we will actually focus on longer term things. So very, very good so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Engar. Councillor Lawton.
Thank you, Leader. It's not often we as councillors come across a paper or a cabinet which we can actually say this is a game changer. This is a super paper. It's really going to take us into 21st, 22nd century. I fully endorse it. I think it's a fantastic paper, and I look forward to the bright future for BCP.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other members of cabinet wishing to speak? Okay, no, I do apologise, Nigel. I didn't see your hand up. Councillor Brooks, Nigel.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As Cabinet Plus member for Christchurch Regeneration, as well as Retail Strategy, I welcome the paper that is before you. As Councillor Steve Barron pointed out, there are a number of options which have been thoroughly considered to ensure that the opportunity is actually dealt with in the right way, and the Urban Regeneration Company is certainly the preference that clearly comes from the analysis. In terms of delivery, this will be the right model, certainly for the Christchurch Civic Centre, which is a very complex site with lots of opportunities in terms of adjoining space, which actually will make a very successful redevelopment as the URC actually starts to look at the opportunity. So I welcome this paper with full support. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you very much for that support. Does anybody else wish to speak to this paper? Okay, so in closing, before we go to the vote, I'd just like to add my thanks to a number of people who've moved this paper forward, you know, particularly the Chief Executive Officer of Section 151 and the Monitoring Officer, alongside our Town Centre Manager, Martin Tiffin, who's been exemplary, you know, through this process for us. So thank you to a lot of work that's gone into it. Thank you, Phil, for bringing it forward. And now very happy to move to the vote. So we have it proposed as amended by Phil. Would anybody like to speak against that or raise against that? Okay. So it's only the people in the room that can vote, so we can do it normally, can't we? Okay, great. So please, all those in favour, please show. Great. So that's unanimous. Thank you, and it's nice to be able to do a vote in a room for once. So yeah, congratulations on that paper, Phil. Excellent. Okay, so that moves us to the agenda item 7, which is the potential transfer of play sites and Highcliffe recreation ground. So I'll call on Councillor Mark Anderson to propose a paper. Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a legacy that we have picked up from Christchurch Borough Council that they proposed prior to LGR. Most of it is relatively straightforward. There is a request that has come in from the chairman of the parish council, Mr. Hutchins, asking that we defer it. I think that we would be better off if we take the paper as it is, with a slight recommendation that allows a delegation to myself with the interim director for environment and the head of corporate properties, and I will read that change to you in a second. It's basically replace recommendation B with the following words, and the words are the proposal to transfer the freehold ownership of assets to Highcliffe and Walkford Parish Council is agreed with delegation to the Corporate Property Officer, Interim Director for Environment, and the Portfolio Holder for Environment, Cleansing and Waste to resolve outstanding terms, conditions and legal arrangements. Everything else stays the same. I think that the main thing is that we're all very keen to make sure that this land always is retained as open space for the use of the people of the conurbation. I don't have much more to add to that, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I'm very happy to second that proposal and accept the amendment now. I think that's really helpful. By making a decision today, we're honouring the commitment that we've taken from the preceding authorities to move forward with this. There are some, minor discussions around that, and I guess some points of principle in terms of what we're looking to achieve with this. And I think by allowing that delegation, that suitably picks it up whilst allowing us to move this forward. So yes, very happy to. Okay, so I've got Councillor Broadhead to come in. I don't believe this item was taken to overview and scrutiny, but by all means, Councillor Barlow, at any point, please show, and I will bring you in. Okay, so Councillor Broadhead, Phil.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson, for bringing this forward. I completely support the principle, and I think it's it's important that we honour the principle to transfer the recreation ground over to the parish council. Equally, I welcome the addition. We've clearly got some minor terms that we've got to iron out in the wash, as we always do. In particular, I'm really quite keen that we maintain that permanence of the recreation ground into the future. There's been some side conversations about the ability to develop the asset in the future. I think that's not something which is something that we would want to see. It's an important community asset. We want it to stay that way. So subject to the final bits of delegation, I'm quite supportive of this, and really just want to make sure that we've got all of those things completely nailed, so that people know that what we are doing here is just transferring the current recreation ground and play sites to the parish council. We're not doing anything that will enable anything to change there in the future, because I think that's very important to the people of Highcliffe, Christchurch, but across the whole of BCP as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's great. Would any other councillor wish to speak on this item? Councillor Mohan.
Just very quickly, in support of my colleague Councillor Anderson and the views already been given, yes, particularly keen that this does stay as a rec going forward. So in that spirit, I approve this as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak? Fine. So we've got a proposed and seconded. I'll happy as amended by Councillor Anderson. Very happy to take that to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Great. Again, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 9, isn't it? 8. Sorry. So yeah, agenda item 8: fly tipping and fly posting enforcement pilot, which I'm bringing Councillor May Haynes in to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hang on. Right. Thank you, Chair. The paper before you is asking Cabinet to approve a 12-month pilot to tackle fly tipping. As we know, since we actually became the administration, one of our priorities was the cleaner, greener, safer agenda. So this actually does sit well with that campaign. Fly tipping on the increase, and there were thoughts at one stage that because we were in lockdown, the household waste recycling centres were closed, that perhaps people just didn't have place either to store their excess waste, or for various other reasons just decided that, you know what, we just want a shot of it, so they fly tip. But as the household waste recycling centres started to reopen, there was no decrease in the instances of fly tipping. So it is not just us, we're not unique in our conurbation, it is a rising trend nationally. So one of the things that myself and Councillor Anderson were very keen to do was to find a way forward to actually tackle fly tipping. And we looked at various options, one of which was also to perhaps resource it internally. So we looked at this, and to resource it internally, we would need 2 staff dedicated to tackling fly tipping, and also someone in a supervisory capacity. So that would mean the cost of anything up from 2 to 2.5 FTEs. And then the other side of this was obviously, if we were to investigate, the staff will need to be trained. There'll be a cost to the training, which will be one-off, but then we would run the risk of the staff then, after a period of time, moving on, and then we're back to square one again. And then the other side of it, of course, is the prosecution. If there is sufficient evidence that has actually been collated that could then lead to a successful prosecution, we would then have the additional cost of anything between £200,000 and £250,000 per annum within our legal department to actually deal with the prosecution side of it. So we're looking at, if we were to bring the service in-house or consider bringing it in-house, there will be a cost implication of upwards of £200,000 per year. So the proposal before us is to go with an external provider. And what this provider will do is it will do all those things. It would provide 2 staff with uniform, with body-worn cameras, a van, plus a supervisor to oversee their work. They will deal with the investigatory side of it. So they will be qualified to actually do the investigation, do the interviews, engage with the local community where the fly tipping incident has actually taken place. So if they then gather sufficient evidence to go to prosecution, this will then come back to us, because in all of this, whilst we may be contracting that side of the work out to an external provider, we will still have complete oversight on the work that they do. So if we were in a position where we would actually be able to prosecute, it will then come back to our head of service, Mr. King, and he will sign off if he feels that it is an appropriate next step. It will then obviously go to our legal department, who will also then sign off. And then this external provider will then take the matter to court and prosecute, with the view that they have a strong enough case to win a successful claim against the perpetrator. Now, the other part of this, which is obviously is difficult to quantify, because you can't really quantify the risk element. The risk of actually a prosecution being unsuccessful will actually be borne by this external company as well. And just by way of an indicative cost of what it cost us to actually clear up the waste in Bournemouth, for example, between April 2018 and March 2020, it cost us nearly £304,000 to actually clear fly tipping waste away. And I'm talking, so there's Poole and there's Christchurch as well, where instances of fly tipping does actually happen. So if this pilot were successful, then the instances of fly tipping will be reduced. So over time, it is also expected that the cost to actually clear the fly tipping will reduce. So I think on balance, I am comfortable that this pilot, and it is a pilot which, according with the terms that we have negotiated with the provider, is that if we at any stage we're not happy with the way the work is progressing or not progressing, we have the option of actually giving 30 days notice to terminate the contract with no penalty to ourselves. So on balance, Chair, I feel that this is actually a good scheme. It is something that we can almost do a try before you buy. We will review how it is going 6 months to see whether this is how, as a council, we wish to actually move forward to deal with fly tipping. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor. That's a great introduction. Councillor Mark Anderson, I believe you want to second.
Thank you, Chairman. I would very much like to second this. I think Councillor Haynes is giving us a very, very comprehensive understanding why we're bringing this paper forward. I would also add that we are looking at making sure there's a lot of publicity about the fact that we are going to be prosecuting fly tippers, that you won't be able to get away with it, and that hopefully by having this pilot and having this very high profile company that are going to prosecute these people, other people will think twice about using an illegal company to remove their rubbish, because the point that people always have to understand is that they are responsible for their rubbish until it is properly disposed. And if it is found that someone has illegally dumped their rubbish, they are the ones that are going to be subject to prosecution. And hopefully, as the pilot progresses, we will notice a marked decrease in fly tipping across the whole conurbation. and an improvement to the general appearance to the environment. So I am very happy to second this, and I hope everyone else will support it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll now bring in the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Stephen Bartlett. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Leader, before I make a summary of the debate that we had in Overview and Scrutiny, and as you're aware, there is a recommendation coming out of the board on this item. The item was discussed in confidence, and the recommendation that we've made in this paper did emerge from that debate that was held in confidential session. So it may be, before I give you the rationale for this recommendation, that you may wish to move into confidential session now. I would say that there are no specific numbers or financial issues that were raised, but there are some sensitive issues there that may be best placed in confidential session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. So I would hope we could discuss this without moving into confidential session. So I'll take with you on that, and we would like to do as much of it in public as we possibly can. If you feel strongly that there's something in there that would contravene that, or you would like to get some advice from a monitoring officer, very happy to do that. But my aspiration here is to proceed as much as we can in open session. Do you feel we can do that in terms of what you want to say?
I think I can. I just wanted to flag it up that the debate did emerge from a confidential session. But I think
appreciate that, Steve. Please go ahead. Yeah, we'll watch out for it. Thank you.
Said yes. Okay. Well, some of the issues you've mentioned. For example, the option to bring the matter in-house was debated at some length. And there was also consideration that the other options that might exist to reduce fly tipping without necessarily using enforcement, for example, better access to the tip with no charge, could be an option that should be considered. And we are informed that a number of other local authorities have done this and have had some success with that particular option. There were concerns about the procurement route to choosing this particular service provider. There were concerns expressed about the potential for reputational damage to the council by using a newly formed company that appeared to have no evidential experience. So this was a fairly major concern of the board. There were doubts raised about the effectiveness of the due diligence process in choosing the selected supplier. So those were the issues that came out. And in making the recommendation, which I'm about to read, this was supported by the majority of the board, and there were 3 abstentions to the recommendation, but there was actually nobody against this recommendation. So there was a strong weight of feeling for this recommendation, which is that the Overview and Scrutiny Board recommend that the Cabinet reconsider this decision and not proceed with the contract at this time, in order to take time to look at what other options may be available. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. And we've got the agenda is. Sorry, I've just had confirmation that we're able to discuss that in open session from our monitoring officer. So thank you very much, Susan Sice, for that. Okay, would May you like to sort of respond to the ONS point, and then I'll bring in other Cabinet members. Councillor Haynes, May.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, we did a lot of the points that have arisen from what Councillor Bartlett has presented to us was indeed raised mainly during the confidential session. So in terms of the company, we had, when we tasked the officers to actually look into this, there were 3 possible companies. This is quite a specialised area, and there are not many businesses or companies out there who actually have staff that are trained, who can actually do this the way it needs to be done in terms of investigating fly tipping. So of the 3 companies, 2 submitted proposals. 1 didn't really meet what we wanted to do and what we were looking to do, and so hence this company that we are considering before us. In terms of this particular company, I take on board the point that Councillor Bartlett has raised, that it is a relatively new company, but it is actually also run by people who have many years. I have to be very careful, Chair, because otherwise this will actually take us into confidential. So if I appear to be talking a bit cloak and dagger, that's why. But it is actually by people who have many years experience of dealing with fly tipping, which is now on the rise. So I think.
Sorry, Councillor Hayes, can I just ask you to stop briefly? Susan Zeiss, do you have you had your hand up by our monitoring officer?
Yes, I did. I know, sorry, Councillor Haynes. Thank you, Leader. I know Councillor Haynes is catching herself here, but on the procurement side, Councillor Haynes, I think it might be wise not to go into too detailed discussion on the merits of the various people who bid for this contract, and that would be better to be discussed in private session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that advice, Susan. So yes, so that's where we are. And don't forget that this is actually a pilot, this is a trial. So if at any point we are dissatisfied with the service that's being provided, we have the option to terminate with 30 days notice, and there will be no penalty to the council. So I think because this is an issue that's ongoing, it's not just us BCP Council who are seeing increased instances of fly tipping. It is also nationwide. It's a problem nationwide. And I think in terms of the point that Councillor Bartlett has raised about perhaps not charging to have certain things disposed of, I'm not sure that actually, this is probably something that perhaps Councillor Anderson is more qualified to comment on. But I think because it is a rise, there is a rise in fly tipping, not just in BCP, but just on a national level. So clearly there is an issue there where perhaps possibly you have businesses that come and say they do house clearance or any form of clearance, but then don't dispose of it properly by taking it to the local household waste recycling or municipal dump, as some of us very lovingly refer to them as, and just dispose of them, I don't know, in a bit of open space somewhere. So as I say, I think that our buffer here is that this is a trial, this is a pilot. We can at any point give 30 days notice and terminate the arrangement because it is a pilot. So I think that given we have quite increased instances of fly tipping in our area, that this is something that we're keen to actually try. To bring it in-house, as I say, carries a significant amount of cost, as I'd outlined in my initial presentation. So I think of the options that we have looked at, this carries a risk. I'm not saying it's risk-free, but it carries a lower risk than if we were to bring it in-house. I think Councillor Anderson would like to add something to it as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Haynes, and thank you for our monitoring officer as well. Councillor Anderson, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add a bit about the household recycling centres, in the fact that there seems to be a contradiction here in that people seem to think that we pay for disposal at them. There are very specific items that have to be paid for, which generally relate to building rubble and ceramics. Everything else is generally free for disposal at the household waste recycling centres. So making it free for those items, I don't think would have any effect on the disposal because they're free anyway. It's a very small amount. I know Haynes has a list of councillors that are already doing pilots with this company, and we know of at least one that has signed I think it's a 5-year contract, and subject to confirmation from Mrs. Ice, I'm sure Councillor Haynes will be able to give us a list of those as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think we need to get into that listing them, but I appreciate the what you've added to the debate by bringing that forward. Okay, I'll move to other councillors now. I've got Councillor Rampton and Councillor Mike Green. So, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm really very supportive of this paper. As Councillor Haynes and Councillor Anderson have both said, it's a trial. The financial risk to the council is minimal. Yeah, we could faff around for a few more months, or we could just do what I'm sure our residents would like us to do, which is to address the problem of fly tipping and fly posting, and we could start in July. Why would we not? Why would we not take up this trial? This council's ambition is to be clean, green and safe, and this paper contributes to that. So I support the paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rampton. Councillor Green, Mike.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yeah, I'm very much in favour of this paper. And to be honest, I'm slightly struggling with the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny. Fly tipping and fly posting isn't something new. This is something that has been plaguing local authorities, it's been plaguing communities for 2 or 3 decades. And it's always been a struggle to find the way of being able to tackle it in an efficient manner, which means that you're providing the service, or we're providing the service that we want to our residents, cleaning up the place and doing so without too much risk and too much cost to the council tax payer. Yes, there are opportunities to look at ways to reduce it. People have been looking at those for the last 20 years. There are opportunities, and it comes up time and time again. Should we stop charging for anyone to be able to dispose of things at the household recycling centres? Well, let's be clear on this. As Councillor Anderson says, it's free to our householders anyway. It is the businesses who are being charged to take them, and although there are a couple of authorities who attempted to make it free for businesses to do, to try to stop the fly tipping taking place. That's not the case where they are in communities and in local authorities where there is a lot of building going along, where there is development going on, because it is those who will take advantage of the opportunity to cost basically the council taxpayer tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds if they can dispose of their of what comes out for free. But for householders, it is free. Not to charge the tip is not a suitable opportunity, not a suitable route for an authority which has a sort of activity that we do here. I mean, personally, I am agnostic as to whether we should be having services provided in-house or contracted out, and that, for me, and I hope actually that goes for this administration. What we want is to get the best service at the best cost for our residents and for our council taxpayers. So in some cases, it does make sense to be bringing services in-house. I have seen very, very few debates where it has been so obvious that the right solution is to contract out. It gets it done quicker. It gets it done at no cost. It gets it done with incredibly little risk. If we can talk about if we have a 30-day opportunity to be able to cancel the contract. To delay, as Councillor Rampton said, all that it is doing is it is prolonging the problem for our residents. So I absolutely hope that we will support this unanimously. I thank the Overview and Scrutiny Board for looking into this, but I'm afraid on this one I think that they've got it wrong. We want to go ahead with this, and I think we should be supporting the paper as it's written. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Mike. Does any other members of Cabinet wish to speak? I'm not saying that, so I'll come in personally, and I very much welcome the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny and the direction what we were trying to what was being attempted in terms of this is a serious issue we need to take properly. And I do disagree politely and slightly with what something Councillor Haynes said in terms of said there is risk here. I actually, look, there's very little risk here. This is this is, as you said, a 30-day trial. A 30-day break. It's a 6-month trial. We absolutely, our view and scrutiny, can come and have a look at this again. We can have a look at it again. So I think this is exemplary what we should be doing, because as an administration, we're committed to actually getting stuff done, not talking about it. And this is exactly what that is. It's pacey, it's decisive, it's proactive, and it says there's a problem here. We've said cleaner, greener, safer. That's not a slogan. We're going to do something about it. So I massively commend Councillor Haynes and Councillor Anderson for bringing this to us, and we'll see how it goes. And then we'll look forward to if we pass this now, either extending it or changing it and getting overview and scrutiny and other members into that debate at the time. Before I take it to the vote, I'll come back to Councillor Haynes to sum up. May.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a slight correction. It's a pilot if we were to go the full course for 12 months, but we will review it after 6 months to see how it's going. So I thank Cabinet colleagues for their very positive comments on this. Doing things in a slightly different way always carries an element of risk, and questions get raised. But as you say, Chairman, this can be terminated with 30 days notice. So I think the risk element here will be fairly low. And in the process, we will see whether actually dealing with fly tipping in this manner is the way forward. So I think on balance, it is a win-win situation that we have before us. So I propose that we proceed with the pilot trial. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Haynes. And yeah, I'll agree that the level of risk is low, and it's more risk to this administration and this place not proceeding. So very happy to support it. Okay, so move to vote. And so could all members who have to support this recommendation unamended, please show. Great, that is again unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mayor Mark, for bringing the paper. That moves us on to agenda item 9, which is Preventing Domestic Abuse Strategy and Delivery Plan 2020-2023. Again, to you, May.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This paper also did go to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I think in general it was actually quite well received, although there is a recommendation from the committee. So this report outlines the BCP Community Safety Partnership Preventing Domestic Abuse Strategy and the accompanying delivery plan. The point that this had actually the overarching strategy did go to overview and scrutiny in, I think it was December last year. And the main criticism that came back from the committee, the ONS committee, was that there was no accompanying delivery plan. Well, at that stage, it was just stage 1 that we had got to, and stage 2 was then the pulling together of the delivery plan. Don't forget, is a plan that is actually owned by the Community Safety Partnership, and I'll just abbreviate it to CSP from now on. And the delivery of the plan sits with that organisation, that group, that partnership group that we are part of. So in the CSP, we have the police, we have the probation service. It also includes from BCP, adult social care and children's services. So we work, and the CCG, so we work across a multi-agency approach for this. So we now have the delivery plan as set out in the appendix. This was well received by ONS, and I think the one recommendation that they have, I don't know, Chair, whether you want me to address that now or I will wait for Councillor Bartlett to actually bring it up. I'll mention it now, is to say I think there was concern about certain groups, protected groups, not being included. If you look at the EQIA, the Equality Impact Assessment, on page 130, as it is in our agenda paper, it does actually provide the provision to cover what is actually in the recommendation from overview and scrutiny. But what we have to bear in mind that this paper, this strategy and the delivery plan is owned by the Community Safety Partnership, by the CSP, who will also be responsible for the delivery of this plan. So I'm happy to actually take the recommendation that had come up from overview and scrutiny. I will pass that on to the CSP for the subgroup that deals with domestic abuse for their consideration, because at the end of the day, as Cabinet, we are not really in a position to be able to amend the strategy because the strategy belongs to the CSP. So I propose the strategy and the delivery plan before us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Haynes. Now to go to Councillor Rampton. Karen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very happy to second this paper. I think is a very detailed and a very thorough report. I mean, you know, who can be a victim of domestic abuse? Well, anyone can, but people with a learning disability are vulnerable to domestic abuse, and they quite often face extra barriers in accessing our services. And I'm really pleased that that's kind of brought out in the report and the Equality Impact Assessment. And I also understand that there is a witness profiler role within our People First organisation, and the role of that profiler is to actually support victims of domestic abuse through the criminal justice system. So that's a really well used and really worthwhile post that we have there, and so I'm really pleased that this strategy and delivery plan has been co-produced. I think it's excellent, and I'm certainly happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Okay, so I'll move to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Bartlett. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, it's fair to say that the board received this paper enthusiastically. I very much welcome the improvements to it from the first time it had come to the board. There was just one fairly minor, well, not minor to the person who recommended it, but the board did accept it, where the paper identifies why individuals struggle to engage with the domestic abuse service, but the paper didn't detail the actions as to how the service could approach this issue. And that was the basis of the recommendation that's before you, which is a very long one, I have to say, but if you don't mind, I will read it out. The Overview and Scrutiny Board recommends that additions are made to the draft domestic abuse strategy and delivery plan to include detailed actions for improving the service's ability to engage with residents who have struggled to engage previously, including male victims of domestic abuse and those in same-sex relationships, victims who are BAME and or don't speak English as a first language, and those who have multiple needs, such as mental health and or substance misuse. So that was the recommendation from the board. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that. May, would you like to come back?
Yes, thank you very much. I thank Councillor Bartlett and the ONS committee for the recommendation. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we as a Cabinet do not own this strategy. It is actually owned by the CSP. So I'll be very happy to actually pass that recommendation on to the CSP for their consideration, bearing in mind that while the document is as it is before us, we in the CSP look upon it as an organic living document. So as and when any modifications or adaptations need to be made in order to actually improve the provision of service to those that most need it, because when you're suffering domestic abuse, it's an extremely distressing and serious situation that you're in. So I will very happily pass that recommendation on to the CSP board and to the subgroup for their consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, May. Okay, so I'll open this up to Cabinet now. Councillor Nicola Green. Nicola.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to all involved in the preparation of this strategy. I just want to speak to a moment about the focus, the very welcome focus of this strategy on children. And I think at paragraph 7, the snapshot, which shows that 31.7% of all children's social care contacts are attributed to domestic abuse, shows us the scale and the importance of the work which goes forward. We know that many perpetrators of domestic abuse have themselves either witnessed or experienced domestic abuse as children, and this is a very welcome intervention in ending that cycle and understanding the impact that living with in a household with domestic abuse has upon our children. So I would absolutely endorse the focus of this report on that, and as I say, thank all those involved in its implementation.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Okay, do any other members wish to speak on this paper? Just before we move to that, I'd just like to commend the process here actually in terms of the work overview and scrutiny done on this paper historically, and Councillor Haynes for then working it up and with the CSP ownership as well. So I think we've arrived at a really positive place, and I'm glad we've got this in front of us. Okay, so I'll move to vote now. It's recommendation as put. All those in favour? Great, that is again unanimous. Thank you very much. So that moves us on to agenda item 10, which is the establishment of a multidisciplinary team and a homeless health centre. So I will bring in Councillor Bob Lawton to propose. Bob.
Thank you, Leader. These proposals set out in this report will help address inherent inequalities and ensure good access to services for those who may be considered marginalised and hard to reach. Firstly, to develop a multidisciplinary team that homeless individuals can access and receive the support they need for accommodation and have their health needs addressed. Secondly, to address or establish a homeless inclusion centre or a health hub, which provides a building-based homeless health and housing centre. Service will be delivered to those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. For example, those in temporary hotel or hostel accommodation. One of the greatest difficulties we have as a council is that homeless people have an innate wariness of councils. This health hub will provide one front door where homeless individuals can attend in order to access health and housing support and advice. I think it's an excellent idea, an excellent service that we hope, and hopefully this health centre or health hub will help us to continue to reduce the homeless people who are on the streets, unfortunately, in the BCP area, and I highly recommend it to the Cabinet. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Bob. Before I move to Councillor Haynes' second, I should just note that should we wish to discuss the detail in appendices 1 and 2, we'd need to move into exempt session. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second this paper, and I'll reserve the right to speak at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's proposed and seconded. And I'll bring in our lead member for homelessness, Councillor Hazel Allen. Hazel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Cabinet, for considering this paper. As already outlined by Councillor Lawton, this is to purchase, renovate and have a central homeless health and housing front door hub based in Bournemouth, but with outreach across the conurbation, to have access to a multi-agency, multidisciplinary service to meet the needs of people that are vulnerable and often have very complex needs that need to be given a wraparound service. And this is also alongside the development of a multidisciplinary team so that all the different nurses, doctors, social workers, drug and alcohol workers, housing teams can work together in one location and make the most of the resources that we have, and with a view to going forward to potentially having a fully commissioned homeless health and housing service in the future. So I think this is a very positive step forward, having the housing-based model along with the MDT to serve the whole of the conurbation is certainly a way forward, and this is this is coming forward after a good couple of years of work to bring everybody together, and it's been excellent collaborative multi-agency work. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'll bring Councillor Haynes in. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I totally endorse what Councillor Allen has said, and I really want to thank both Councillor Allen and Councillor Lawton for bringing this item forward. As we know that there is actually a bit of a grey area, or what is perceived to be a grey area, between those who are homeless, aggressive begging, and things that actually happen on the street where people's perception appears to have actually changed with the lockdowns, because our town centres have been very quiet, and thankfully now they are now starting to wake up. So I really, really welcome this, because you've got people who have street attachment issues because they have issues that are perhaps deeper than just being homeless, or they may be housed but they have street attachment issues, and to have this one place where they will actually, when it's ready, be able to go to be given the help that they need to be able to move on to a better life. I think it's a win-win the way I see it. So I really totally welcome this, and I really do wish to thank Councillor Allen and Councillor Lawton for bringing this excellent paper forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, May. That's great. Councillor Broadhead, Phil.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to echo those the congratulations to those of them members that have been putting in a tremendous amount of work on this, Councillor Lawton and particularly Councillor Allen as well. And it was great to hear you on BBC Radio this morning championing the cause as well. What I like about this paper is that it's not just about buying a building. It's actually about taking a step back and looking at the real issues around rough sleeping and homelessness and trying to address those issues. And I think that's why it's such an important step. Councillor Lawton in the opening talked about the reality on the ground of a lot of the vulnerable people that are finding themselves in this position, and in particular that wariness. It's not often a situation that people are finding themselves rough sleeping or homeless because there aren't options available to them, that the council isn't providing homes or services. We always are. The problem is quite often about confidence and ease. And that's why I think this is a really huge step forward. The idea of one front door, it's easy, it's connected, it's obvious, and it's friendly. And that's a big step forward in addressing the real concerns that often these very vulnerable people have. We've seen a really quite dramatic reduction in the number of rough sleepers on our streets over the last year, and that's to be really welcomed. But there are still some people that find it very, very difficult, and it's our duty to look at the problems, look at the issues, and find a solution to them. And quite often it is trying to make it as user-friendly and as easy as possible. So this is about more than a building. This is about thinking very, very different, and I'm really hopeful that this will be successful. But I'd just like to congratulate all of the people that have been, and all of the organisations that have been involved in this journey, because it's too important to not get right, and it finally feels like we're making some real steps forward. So really happy to support this, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. And before I add my comments, I'll apologise to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Bartlett, who I should have brought in at the beginning of this. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The Overview and Scrutiny Board made no recommendations to this paper, but I have to say that the board really welcomed this paper, unanimously supportive of it. But the point that comes out of this in particular, that it does reflect the hugely significant effort that the council is making towards reducing homelessness and rough sleeping. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. Okay, and I'll come to...
Thank you, Leader. Can I just thank Councillor Hayes and Councillor Broadhead for their excellent support? Can I thank the Overview and Scrutiny Board for their superb looking at the paper? Can I also thank Ben Tomlin and his team for helping us greatly in facilitating this? And finally, can I play major thanks to Councillor Allen for her major support and major work on this paper. I'd love to take all the credit for myself, but I could not have done it without Hazel, so she deserves 99% of all the plaudits. So thank you, Hazel.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll all echo that, which is great. And I'll just before I move to the vote, just sort of remind us that the government has got a stated ambition of ending homelessness in this Parliament, and they put huge financial support into local councils, enable councils like us to be able to deliver that as well. So extend our thanks to the government for their support. We have an ambition to have a world-class place. We have ambition for really positive outcomes for all members of our society. We've made great strides in terms of the homelessness numbers, the success of everyone in, and the reduced numbers at the last count. So I think we should be really proud of a paper that's coming up. What I really like about this is it's interventionist in a problem, and it's impatient. We want to move it forward. We want to actually get something done, and I really respect the tenacious energy Hazel and partners has brought to this over a number of years to get to this point. And those partners are both health and also private sector that have really engaged in this as well. So it really is a partnership piece of work in more than just name. So yeah, just to add my thanks to you, Bob, and to Hazel. So thank you. Okay, so we'll move back to the vote now. As put, all those in favour, please show. And again, unanimous. That's great, and a really positive step forward for our towns. Thank you. Okay, so then that moves us on to agenda item 11, which is a special educational needs and disabilities and inclusion strategy. Nicola, great, Nicola.
Thank you, Leader. The nice problem to have is that such a big piece of work means that there's quite a lot to say about it. So I will beg your indulgence, but I will take this opportunity to present to Cabinet this strategy in perhaps a little more detail than I might otherwise do. It encompasses the BCP-wide vision for all our children and young people with special educational needs and disability. It's a wide and it's a disparate cohort of young people whose needs range from those rooted in the medical sphere through learning, communication and behavioural aspects. What they have in common, however, as with other young people, is the right to have their needs met, to have families supported and the futures to be fulfilled. This vision document sets out how the partnership intends to deliver on our commitment to our young people. It's been developed with contributions from stakeholders including the local authority, health services, education providers, the voluntary and private sectors. So far so normal. Where it becomes a more interesting and a more living and breathing dynamic document is where it's had input from the children and young people themselves and their families. The paper should be read in conjunction with Children and Young People's Partnership Plan, which came to Cabinet in March and then onward to Council, and that sets out the wider context for children growing up in BCP. And you'll remember those very, very good infographics within that document, which sets out that for every 100 children in BCP, 15 will have a special educational need or disability, and 3 of those will have an education, health and care plan, notwithstanding any other needs then their family might have. That plan set out an intention based on what the young people told us, that they want to be fulfilled, happy, included and resilient. And these themes are further developed within this strategy that we're looking at today. And that's particularly focused on the fact that children with special educational needs and disabilities should experience inclusion in every aspect of their lives. They should achieve their full potential and be partners with their families in developing the services which they access. Our big plan ambition is for BCP to be one of the best coastal places for people, and that means children and young people too, to live, learn, grow up, work and thrive in. The governance of this plan sits elsewhere, but it does set out clear themes around which that delivery will sit, starting with strong leadership and governance, and that's about mutual accountability of all partners, with external challenge coming from the local government or association and of course Ofsted. That there should be co-production of processes and services to reduce barriers, to reduce jargon, repetition, bureaucracy, and ensuring that we communicate clearly with all our families. We should also ensure that young people are prepared for adulthood, meaning that our services aren't simply an end in themselves, but they're aspirational, purposeful, and lead to their independence. And I'm delighted, not to anticipate what she might have to say, but that my colleague Councillor Karen Rampton is going to be seconding that document, looking at this very much from the adult's perspective. Our young people should experience inclusion in education and in the wider community. We should listen to them about what they need and be active in their local community, and ensuring that any barriers that exist to them being educated locally are minimal. And lastly, we do refer to joint commissioning. It is a bit dry when you talk about it, but actually it's crucial if we're to make sure that we have the right educational and social opportunities locally. Now, I will turn to governance for a moment, and I've already spoken with Sarah Colwick and asked that we append some of this detail with the minutes so that we're all absolutely clear about where this accountability sits. The body responsible for delivering this strategy is the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Improvement Board. This is chaired independently by a local government association improvement specialist who provides us all with robust and impartial challenge. It meets 6 weekly and assesses improvement against the 5 priorities which I've set out through its own learning and improvement plan. The board comprises representatives from Parent Carers Together, the Dorset CCG, head teachers, the voluntary and community sectors, health providers, officers of BCP, as well as elected members, both myself as the Cabinet member and also Councillor Sandra Moore as a non-executive member, but who reports directly back to Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny. And that, as you'll imagine, that Overview and Scrutiny Board takes a keen interest in this area of work, and they're taking a report at their next meeting looking at this strategy, from which I anticipate the further scrutiny will follow. It won't be a piece of work in itself just to adopt the plan. At last Monday's Health and Adult Services Overview and Scrutiny Board, I drew members' attention to the priority of preparation for adulthood, which links directly with work under their remit. And there is further reporting line to the Health and Wellbeing Board, which I chair, whose strategy focuses on improving incomes for children, young people and adults with young adults with special educational needs. While this is a strategy for Cabinet to approve today, I do commend it to all members, given its impact on on many of our residents and many of those in the greatest need. Leader, colleagues, we must be honest and acknowledge that we have much to do. Some of our children and their families who have the greatest needs are not yet receiving the right services at the point of need. Some of them travel long distances in order to meet their need, and are therefore not growing up within their own communities and amongst their peers. And we have been too slow to pick up on the recommendations of peer review which took place in the spring of last year. Young people with special educational needs and disabilities, in addition, have been particularly impacted by the pandemic, as many of those are at high risk of suffering digital exclusion. However, improvement is underway, and this strategy underpins and underlines our commitment to it. The SEND Improvement Board is showing leadership for the whole partnership, and this strategy gives visibility to that work, and I welcome that visibility and to our commitment to our young people. With this as a focus, they can play their full and active part in our future together. And I so move the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. And did I hear that Councillor Upton was going to second that?
Yes,
Karen.
thank you. Thank you, Leader. I'm very happy to second it. That's a very hard act to follow. So I just want to say a couple of brief things, which is mainly about the format of this report, which I think is absolutely excellent. It's really clear, easy to understand. It says absolutely what, in a co-production way, it's the second time today I've used that, what people want to achieve together. And as Councillor Green referred to, we have young people moving into adulthood, into adult services. What comes out again and again in this report is what those people are saying they want. They want to be independent, they want to have jobs, they want to understand money, and they want to have good health. And all those things are being addressed early on, earlier than we used to, and I really commend the proactive work that we're doing, because it will just absolutely contribute to the strengths-based approach
way that we're going. So when they do move into adulthood, they already have those building blocks for a successful independent future. So I'm very happy to second this report, and I hope it is supported by all of Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both. That's great. Okay, I don't believe this is taken to overview and scrutiny, but Steve, by all means, show if you would like to comment. Do any other members wish to comment on this paper? Okay, so just commenting personally, I mean, I'm just really pleased to receive it. I think, you know, our commitment around inclusion is absolutely there. Our commitment around improvement in SEN is there as well. I've been really impressed actually with the leadership and pace across that, because there's a huge amount of work to do, and I have some real confidence that we're doing it. So thank you to everybody leading in that. You know, as a wider council and the cabinet, we've stepped up with our revenue and capital commitment as well. But it's more than just the money; it's about you know, a lot of things that this report details. So thank you very much for bringing it. Okay, no other members looking to speak, so I will move to vote. As put, all of those in favour. Again, great. That is unanimous. So thank you very much. That moves us on to agenda item 12, which is the Cabinet Forward Plan. And in that, I just note that the updated Forward Plan was published yesterday. Supersedes the version contained within the agenda. Any members wish to comment on the Forward Plan? Okay, I'm not seeing. So I'll just as I close the meeting, I'll just say, look, what a positive meeting we've just had. The homelessness paper, fantastic. The Urban Regeneration Company, in terms of the the place shaping aims for that, and what that really should turbocharge our ambition. So commend cabinet colleagues for lots of work on this and bringing it forward. We've got a vision and we're delivering on it. So thank you very much. Okay, and thank you to everybody, and thank you for anybody who's watching as well. So appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And I'll formally close the meeting. Thank you.